Hello people of the world, and welcome to Omni Hour. Kiba said into a camera. Her, Ken, and Amai were all sitting around a round table, in front of the camera, with Fu and Shiruka recording them. Many of you have probably been looking forward to the next project from Omni Games. Well, today you can find out all about it. Ken said confidently. I present you Foundation Feud. The screen changed, showing the box art for the game, depicting various members of the Midoriya Foundation clashing with each other before the screen went back to the three. Here, you'll be able to play as many members of our wondrous family, in an action-packed fighting game, Kiba said eagerly. And even if you're not a fan of them, the gameplay is expertly crafted, with a wide variety of features that'll keep you hooked. Omai said. We've all worked really hard on this, and today we're finally going to show you everything. From general gameplay mechanics, down to specific characters and assists. Let's get started. General mechanics. The screen switched to show the game at the beginning of a match, with Izuka wielding his staff against Fu. Foundation Feud is a one-on-one, 2D fighting game, Amai explained. Well, technically one-on-one. Both characters will have one assist character. As you can see on the top of the screen right below the health bar, Mr. Midoriya has Eri helping him, and Fu has K as an assist, but more about that later. Most matches will have a 10-minute time limit, and when the time ends, whoever has the lowest health loses, Kiba explained. If both characters have the exact same amount of health, it's a draw. Although some characters can affect the timer. But we'll get to that later as well. This game works largely the same as most other fighting games, Amai explained. Hold back to block, press O for light attacks, triangle for medium attacks, and X for heavy attacks, or whatever equivalents you have for those on other controllers. And by making quarter circle and back quarter circle inputs, can change moves into special moves. Using the left back bumper you can summon your assist. All assists have 3 moves. Normal input, back input, and forward input moves. Ken explained. And using the right back bumper, you can use your super moves. Kiba explained. The flashy moves that can really change the tide of battle. But to do these moves, you need to build up your Midori meter. Amai continued. You can see both characters' meters at the bottom of the screen. Each time you do a move, you build up a meter. And each meter can go up 9 levels. Depending on how much meter you have, the more moves you'll have access to. And if you get up to 5 meters, you can unleash your ultimate attack. You can also use the top right bumper to meter burn certain moves and increase their power, speed, range, or something else, depending on the move. And lastly, we have the parry, which can be used with the upper left bumper, Kiba explained. By parrying certain attacks at just the right time, you can turn an opponent's advantage state into a disadvantage or neutral state, Amai said. Or, in simpler terms, use it, and you can get your opponent off of you and start attacking them. That's all for the general mechanics. Now let's get into the exciting parts. Kiba smiled. The characters. We can't go into full detail because that would take forever, so we'll just talk about the important parts, Ken said. Starting with Dash. Izuku Midoriya. Mr. Midoriya is practical, but not all too flashy, Omni explained. He wields a staff. In-game, Izuku did a few moves with his staff. Some swings, some pokes, etc. And a gun. Omni continued. Bang bang bang. In-game, Izuku pulled out a gun and shot Fu with a few bullets. Using these tools, Mr. Midoriya is great at mid-ranged combat and keeping foes back, Omni said. He may be plain, but he's not weak. That's Mr. Midoriya in a nutshell. Lady Kiba and Hinata. The Player 1 character changed to Kiba, holding Hinata in her sword form. My turn. Kiba jumped in. In this game, I'm what Omni calls a rushdown character, which means I need to be attacking the foe as much as possible. And why is that? Well, please direct your attention to the second meter above the Midori meter. That is my blood meter. It has 3 states: full, hungry, and starving. And which state you are in heavily affects my character. Watch. Suddenly the screen split into 3, showing Kiba in starving mode, hungry mode, and full mode all at the same time. All 3 Kibas did a short combo on Fu. Starving mode Kiba did absolutely pitiful damage. Hungry mode Kiba did a good chunk of damage. And full mode Kiba did a huge chunk of damage. Next, Fu did a short combo on her. Starving mode Kiba took a ton of damage. Hungry mode Kiba took a fair amount of damage. And full mode Kiba took significantly less. Next, each Kiba did a special move, where they made spikes made of shadows rise from the ground. Starving mode Kiba only made one spike come out right in front of her. Hungry mode Kiba made many spikes covering half of the ground. And full mode Kiba made spikes that completely covered the ground. Even my parry is heavily affected by the blood meter. Kiba continued. In starving mode, my parry is very slow and difficult to use. In hungry mode it's rather average, however once in full mode, I unlocked the Blackwing parry. On screen Fu attacked her with a Kyosei claw, and Kiba parried it with a Batwing. Then, Fu shot one of his bones at her using his arm crossbow, and Kiba Batwing parried it, right back at Fu. That's right, not only is the range of the parry extended, but it can also reflect projectiles right back from whence they came. Kiba shouted. Lastly, the super moves I can use all come back to the blood meter. If I'm in starvation mode I can't use any of them. If I'm in hungry mode I can use most of them, and if I'm in full mode, I can use my ultimate. Black Sun devours hope. On screen, Kiba suddenly burst with power, rushed forward with her wings, and struck Fu with her sword. Then a cutscene is initiated. Kiba flew into the air with her bat wings and smiled, as shadows rose up all around her, gathering behind her. Black sun rise. Obey your queen, and devour my enemies. The shadows gathered into a giant black ball that blocked out the sun. Then serpent-like dragon heads came out of the black sun, rushed at Fu, and bit down on him, before bringing him back into the black sun, which grew a giant dragon head that completely swallowed Fu. And then it all exploded. Cut back to normal gameplay. Fu is on the ground, with most of his health gone. Amazing, isn't it? And it's one of the most damaging attacks in the entire game, Kiba said proudly. And no, this isn't biased. It's just that since you have to have 5 levels of meter and be in full mode, and you have to land it. So it's balanced. Speaking of balance, I'm sure you understand by now that the blood meter is very important. But there's still one more thing I should show you. Back to gameplay. In-game, Kiba did a bunch of basic sword swipes on nothing, decreasing her blood meter with each swipe until it hit 0. Ah! Kiba screamed as she fell to her knees. KO! Shouted the announcer. That's right, if the blood meter hits 0, you instantly lose, Kiba said. So, how exactly do you manage this all-important meter? Simple. Every time you hit the opponent, your blood meter increases. If they're blocking, it increases less. The meter will decrease on its own. But it'll go down faster every time you attack, or if you are attacked. How much it goes down depends on the power of the moves you're using or getting hit by. A simple mechanic, but one of deadly importance, Omni said. Feed on your enemies, and drink up victory, as Kiba Midoriya. Fu and Kaiosei. Now you've probably noticed by now, the numbers on health bars. Ken pointed out. That's because each character has a different amount of health. And Fu has the most. Because it was either this or we added healing moves, and Omni hated that idea. Fu is a zoner, who uses his tendrils and bones to keep people on the other side of the screen. Omni jumped in. Meanwhile, in the game, Fu was fighting Kiba, who was attempting to approach him. But he hit her with a tendril to knock her back, before sending another tendril through the ground to keep hitting her. Once Kiba got up, Fu hit her with a bone crossbow. Then used it again, and the meter burned it so multiple shots sprayed across the screen. Of course, Fu is very weak when you actually do get up close. Omni continued, showing Fu getting beat up as soon as Kiba got close. So he has a few tools to help with that. None more powerful than his parry explosion. Back to the game, Kiba got close and attempted to hit Fu with a sword, only for Fu to land a parry, and then explode. Fu then reformed almost instantly on the other side of the screen. Although some of his health was gone, a bar of meter had been used. Fu can burn 1 bar of meter on his parry, and trigger the parry explosion, Omni explained. Instantly teleport you to the other side of the screen. Although it does take some of your health. So only use it if you think your opponent will do more damage than the move. But none of that is the coolest part of Fu's moveset. Kiba added. That comes when you activate his ultimate. Back with the gameplay, Fu suddenly burst with power like Kiba did before, as a cutscene played. "You asked for it, Kiba," in-game Fu said as he pulled out a vial of might concentrate, and gulped it down, as Kyosei covered his body completely. Rah-hai! Fu's body morphed into a muscle-bound monster, with razor-sharp teeth. Then cut back to gameplay, but now Fu was in this larger form. "Behold Super Fu," Kiba said. Once Fu transforms, he stays like this for the rest of the match, and gains tremendous power, turning into a rush-down character. In-game Super Fu charged at Kiba, and started attacking Kiba with his claws, dealing huge amounts of damage. However, as Fu stays in this form, his health will go down over time. Kiba continued. "So if you're playing against him, it's best to keep him far away." Ironic, huh? Make sure to adapt your play style, and use your brain to defeat your opponents, with Fu. Sansan. Now we have everyone's favorite liquid, Sansan. Ken started. Sansan is a grappler, who wants to get as close as possible and grab her opponents, knocking them around for maximum damage. In-game, Sansan charged at Fu. Fu tried to shoot her with a bone projectile, but Sansan turned into a puddle, slid under the projectile, and Fu appeared on the other side of him, before grabbing Fu, squeezing him, and slamming him into the wall of the stage, and then continuing the combo. Normally Sansan is immune to most attacks, which we obviously couldn't put in the game, but that doesn't mean it's easy to damage her. Ken continued. In the game, Sansan started moving around the screen, zipping all around, up and down, left and right, using special moves to bounce around the sides of the screen and move under attacks. Sansan is just hard to control, as she is to hit. If you can find a way to control her movement, you can give your opponent the slip. Omni said. Shiroku. Everyone's favorite fashion-forward spider girl joins the battle as a trapper, Kiba said, spreading her webs and spiders all over the screen. Speaking of webs, let's talk about that. In-game, Shiroku then shot a web projectile at Fu, which, when it hit, immediately wrapped Fu up in a web cocoon. This is the web-wrapped state. Whenever you make contact with Shiroku's webs, you'll be trapped in a web cocoon for 3 seconds. More than enough time for Shiroku to start a proper combo on you, Kiba said. What's more, Shiroku doesn't even need to hit you with the webs directly. Back in game, Shiroku jumped up and then shot one of her webs downwards towards Fu. The web projectile landed on the ground in front of him. But instead of just vanishing when it hit the ground, it left a web on the ground. Shiroku then jumped up again, and shot a web through the air, hitting the wall and leaving a web on the side of it. As you can see, when Shiroku shoots a web and it hits anything but the opponent, it will leave a web on that surface, Omni explained. And if you touch those webs, in-game Fu stepped over the web, and was immediately wrapped in a web trap. You get stuck in a web trap. Omni continued. This can be used to keep opponents from approaching you, setting up combos, or even extending them. In-game, Fu was trapped in the web, and Shiroku shot a web line, reeling him in before doing a combo on him, and then throwing him at the wall towards the other web, trapping him once again, leading him into another, shorter combo. But she can do more than just web up her opponents. Let's not forget she is also the Queen of Spiders, Kiba added. Not as impressive as the Queen of Eternal Darkness, but still formidable. Back in the game, Shiroku used a special move and sent out a small army of spiders that moved across the ground, eventually hitting Fu, causing him to become covered in spiders, doing small bits of damage to him each second. When a spider attack hits you, you'll be covered in spiders, biting down and doing damage over time, Omni explained. So as you can see, her damage potential is insane. But she is not without weaknesses. Her spiders will fall off if she or her opponent gets hit. And she can only have 3 web traps at a time. Can you surround and overwhelm your opponents? Kiba asked. If so, then you'll thrive playing as Shiroku. Why am I? Yami is the commander of an army of Grimm, and as such he brings that army into battle with him here as well, Kiba said. In-game, Yami stood in battle, with 2 chameleon Grimm on his arms. He summoned a Beowulf to rush at his opponent. Then he started a combo from the other side of the screen, using his licker's long tongues as whips, and having various other Grimm jump in. Next, he started a combo by having a griffin fly in from behind and hit the opponent. Then he summoned a creep from underground to attack them. Yami relies on his Grimm to attack, using them to keep away his opponent and deal damage. Omni said. But there is one thing you should keep an eye on. You see that meter above the Midori meter? That's the misery meter. Much like Kiba's blood bar, the higher the meter, the better. It has 3 states: low, medium, and high. As the bar fills, you'll be able to summon stronger Grimm to come to your aid. Once again the screen split in 3, showing Yamis with low, medium, and high misery meters. All 3 summoned a Grimm to rush towards the opponent and hit them. Low Yami summoned a Beowulf, medium Yami summoned a Borbotus, and high Yami summoned a Virangel. Next, all of them summoned a flying Grimm to attack them from behind. Low Yami summoned a Griffin. Medium Yami summoned a Manticore. And high Yami summoned a Wyvern. Lastly, each Yami summoned something from the ground to rise up and attack his opponent. Low Yami summoned a Creep. Medium Yami summoned a Sentinel. And high Yami summoned a Blindworm. And of course, the damage increased with each stage. So how do you fill this bar? Well, it goes up by itself, Ken said. The longer the fight goes on, the more the meter fills. So if you want to win, zone. Zone like your life depends on it. Can you get past the snarling beast? Or will you succumb to the army of darkness? Kiba asked. Face Yami in battle, and find out. Netsu. For the most part, Netsu is your standard Shoto. Good at any range, but best at mid-range. But he does have one unique feature to him. Omai said. In-game, Netsu used a special move and burst himself toward Fu, and started attacking while Fu blocked. And despite not doing that much, he built up a bar and a half of meter. Now you might have noticed that he built up a lot of meter, Omai said. That's because Netsu's all about building up meter. Not only to use super moves, but because his ultimate requires a lot of meter. At first, your ultimate is called heating up. In-game, Netsu suddenly burst with power. Ha-ah-yeah! As he screamed, his flames turned blue, and then it was over. Heating up is an install that increases the attack power of everything Netsu's does. Omai continued. You can do it twice. Going from normal flames to blue flames, to white flames. Ha-yeah! Once again Netsu activated his ultimate, turning from blue to white. And once the conditions are met, you can activate his true ultimate move. Kiba jumped in. White. Hot. Hell. Back in the game, Netsu burst with power once more, as a shortcut scene of Netsu charging his energy and bringing his hands together. You better dodge this one. White. Hot. Hell. A massive screen-filling blast of white fire flew at Fu, and when it hit him, another cutscene played, of the blast flying forward, completely engulfing everything around it, and destroying a good chunk of the stage. When the blast faded, the camera stayed on the destruction that the attack left behind. KO! The announcer shouted. That's right, this move is an instant KO. As it should be, considering you have to build up 15 bars of meter and hit the opponent. Kiba said. But even without using this, White Netsu's damage makes getting to that stage more than worth it. Stoke the flames of victory with Netsu. Ken and Nara. Ugh, did you have to lump me and her into the same part? Ken groaned. We went over this, Ken. Kiba sighed. You and Nara don't exactly have much to talk about. You both just shift forms when you do attacks. We could end this segment right there. I still say each one of my forms should have had their own moveset. Ken argued. And I can't even switch between forms in real life. Meanwhile, as they were arguing, the footage of Ken and Nara's gameplay continued to go on as if they were following the script. Ken, people hate it when a bunch of slots in a fighting game are taken up by the same person, even if it does make sense, Omai said. And this is just much cooler. Also, we're taking, what is it called, liberties? Yeah, that's right. We're taking liberties with what our quirks can do. I can't make shadows explode, but there's no chance I'm taking that out of my ultimate. Kiba added. Just be satisfied with what you have. Your character's cool enough, you don't need to have 9 visions of yourself. Well, Ken heard Fu talking, although the audience could not because he lacked a microphone. What do you mean this section is over? What do you mean the footage has been running this whole time? Well, if that's the case, not much point going over it, Kiba said. Let's move on then. Damn it. Ken swore. Sheena. Moving on. Sheena is a rush-down character made to end fights fast. Omni said. Which is good, because you might have noticed something. In-game, Sheena was now facing Fu. But the timer was set to 9 minutes instead of 10. When you pick Sheena and start a fight, the timer will be reduced by 1 minute, Omni said. And the timer reaches 0, Sheena will be the one to lose no matter what. Unless both characters are Sheena, then it goes back to the default system. Sheena also has a very unique feature with her special moves, Kiba said. Each time Sheena hits you with a special move, depending on the move, it will kill one of your abilities. In-game, Sheena cut the ground, causing Fu to trip, slip towards her, and then Sheena unleashed another slash at him. And now he can't attack, Kiba said. That's right, Sheena's special move can disable things like attacking, guarding, parrying, using assists, and using specials or supers. Fortunately, it only lasts for 9 seconds. And Sheena has one last thing, Ken added. Here is what happens when you reach 9 seconds left in the match. In-game, the clock continued to tick down as normal, until it reached 9 seconds. Rah! Sheena cried as suddenly she started glowing red, and the sky turned dark. Then Sheena ran forward and hit Fu once. Ow wow! Fu cried sarcastically as he fell to the ground. KO! The announcer shouted. When the timer goes down to 9 seconds, Sheena enters death cry mode, Omni explained. In death cry mode, all of her attacks become instant kills. You can still block them, but if she lands a successful hit, you're done. Take up the side, and become the master of death, as Sheena, Kiba added.